Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining our DrayTek Centralized Management Solutions webinar today. My name is Mia Tole. I'm the Technical Product Manager for the DrayTek line of products at ABP Technology. Before we start, I would like to mention that our Technical Director, Henry Castillo, will be taking your questions today. So don't forget to type them in the chat window anytime during the course of the webinar. We will try to answer all your questions during the webinar, but if we run out of time, we will email you the information that you need. So let's begin. So this webinar will primarily be an overview of the ACS centralized management system, which is designed for larger multi-site projects and service providers. This system is useful for anyone looking to manage more than one DrayTek device, really. If you are brand new to the company, if you're having any audio issues, do let us know in the chat window. Okay, let me continue. So if you're brand new to the company, I urge you to check out all our other product overview webinars as well to get a background on these powerful devices. We have several videos that you can view on our DrayTek USA YouTube channel. So whether you're deploying backup WAN solutions or VoIP or VPN solutions for your customers, DrayTek offers incredible value with its feature-rich product lineup. And the ACS software seamlessly ties all these together. So we will look at some of the ACS capabilities and features in detail. And then we will, if time permits, show you a demo of the ACS interface and also how to set it up so that the router reports to the ACS if you already have a DrayTek router. Okay, so before we dive any deeper into the ACS, let me give you a quick overview of the company. DrayTek is a networking solutions manufacturer from Taiwan. They are popular all over the world for their feature-rich business routers, firewalls, and VPN gateways. DrayTek was one of the first global companies to introduce VPNs for teleworkers and dual WAN routers to the SMB market. Thousands of DrayTek devices are sold worldwide every year. Vodafone, the global internet service provider, has selected DrayTek as their CPE router of choice for Netherlands, and they have deployed about 100,000 DrayTek devices to their customers so far. Closer to home, we have seen successful projects with Fonality, a well-known ITSP. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on every DrayTek model. Suffice it to say that DrayTek offers an extensive range of routers suitable for different sizes of networks and applications. They can support a wide variety of WAN interfaces such as cable, ADSL, VDSL, fiber, 4G LTE, depending on the model. DrayTek also offers Wi-Fi access points, both ceiling and desktop, that support the 802.11 AC protocol, so they are all gigabit, as well as gigabit PoE switches. If you look in the handouts section, I've uploaded the 2017 data book. So if you like to have some more information on our different models and comparisons, you can look at the data book. So although DrayTek is still relatively new to US, they are rapidly becoming a favorite of MSPs and ISPs, ITSPs looking for a robust feature-rich network solution to deploy to their customer base. So as most service providers and integrators with large multi-site projects have experienced, there are complex technical and administrative challenges when deploying and maintaining hundreds of customer network devices in the field. It has become essential for any provider with a complex network project to have complete visibility and centralized control over their deployed equipment at all times. With DrayTek's management software, customers can monitor all their deployed devices from a central interface, and they can proactively resolve customer network issues. So you can reduce support calls, reduce truck rolls, This actually helps you transition to a managed service provider platform and generate recurring revenue streams for. If you are an MSP, you can reduce your own support requirements and offer proactive network monitoring to your customers as a great value-added service. So it becomes really convenient for you to standardize on DrayTek and provide your customers a quality product at lower costs. So what is the ACS? It's DrayTek's proprietary auto-configuration server software that lets service providers and system integrators manage thousands of DrayTek routers in multi-site environments. It uses the TR69 protocol for management, which is basically an application layer protocol for remote management of CPEs. Kind of similar to SNMP, but much more secure and flexible, so ISPs prefer it. The ACS software is installed on your own server, so it's private and secure. And it's multi-tenant. So it's multi-tenant architecture. Actually, you can provide your customers access to their own accounts and determine the level of control you want to share with your customers. Licensing on the ACS is also very simple. There are no per user licenses. The ACS is an annual license that depends on the number of routers you have, and the smallest license starts from 25. It can go up to thousands of routers as your deployed customer base grows. So it's very scalable. And the cost works out to approximately $5 per node in the first year, which is negligible compared to the revenue that can be generated by offering the ACS as a managed service to your customers. So with the ACS, you can see connectivity status, monitor system health alerts, and generate detailed reports for all your customer equipment that you have deployed. So you can proactively monitor and resolve customer network issues. You can also take backups, push firmwares, licenses, build VPNs through one single interface. Now, if you just started using DrayTek and you don't want to go to the trouble of installing and maintaining the ACS software on your own server, ABP is now offering a hosted version of the ACS for our customers because we want to encourage adoption. We see the value in this product. So even if you have purchased just one DrayTek router, we will be happy to provide you access to a hosted ACS server. This service is still new though, so please bear with us as we iron out all the details. Once you like the ACS platform and you have enough devices deployed in the field, you can either deploy the ACS on your own server or continue to use our hosted version. With the hosted version, you don't have to worry about installation or maintenance of the server. So this hosted service is free of cost at the moment, as we are still working out the details. We might have a per device monthly subscription in future, where you will only be charged for the devices that you're managing through the ACS. So before we move on to the detailed features of the ACS, Henry, do you have any questions from our audience?
Sorry, I was muted. No, you can continue, Mia. I'm collecting some questions, so I'll send them together.
Okay, so before we get into all the features available on the ACS, this is a quick reference for DrayTek's hardware recommendations for installing the ACS. As you can see, for up to 500 nodes, ACS server can be installed on Windows. But beyond that, if you have a larger customer base than 500, we recommend that you install it on Linux systems. So let's get into the detailed features. Let's look at the monitoring options available within the ACS first. Once a DrayTek router registers with the ACS, and I will show you how to set that up in the router, a variety of monitoring options become available to you. You can monitor all the registered devices in a map view. So if you have routers distributed all over the country, you can keep track of them visually to see which ones are online and which are offline. Hovering over a router icon also gives you a quick summary of the WAN and LAN IP addressing. There are also other visual alarms to warn you when a device loses connection. All this helps you proactively troubleshoot your customer's equipment. You can set up network operators with view-only privileges to monitor the health of the devices, or you can set up admins who can check all the configuration settings remotely. All the settings like the detailed WAN, LAN, VPN, NAT configuration, all of them. But the ACS is not only for monitoring the general health of the routers, it can also let you view every setting on the routers remotely and push configuration changes to the routers. So you can reboot the routers remotely, which is useful if you're making changes to the WAN or LAN IP addressing. So you need to reboot the routers for the changes to take effect. Basically, any router setting that can be accessed via the router's own GUI can also be remotely checked and modified from the ACS. And you can control which ACS users can make these changes to the configuration based on the role that you assign to them. So operator users will not be able to change the configuration, only view the current settings and monitor health parameters. Another useful feature is the ability to copy parameters between routers in the same series. For example, you can copy parameters between 2925 and 2925N and 2925 AC models. These are all different models based on the whether Wi-Fi is inbuilt on the router or not, but they are models from the same series. So you can copy parameters between them. And why is this useful? Because for settings like NAT open ports or IP to MAC bindings or firewall rules, you don't need to note those down or create any lists or worry about downloading them from one router, uploading them to another. So once you set up one router and you just want the same parameters on all your other deployed routers, all you need to do is select which parameter you need to copy and the model that you want to copy them to. So it saves you a lot of time when you need to configure a bunch of NAT port forwards, for example. Now, as far as firmware upgrades go, you can upgrade each individual router to the latest firmware from the ACS. But the ACS also has another functionality, the file repository, which is a great feature to automate this task. So you can upload a firmware file for the routers once it becomes available on the DrayTek USA website. You can upload this file to the file repository and deploy it to as many routers as you wish. So you can deploy it in batch mode and you can set up a schedule for the firmware upgrade if you want it to be done after hours or on weekends so you do not have to disrupt your customers' business. So this makes it easy to keep a track of all the firmware changes required on all the routers in your network. Now, for some particular reason, if you want to keep a router on an older firmware, just don't include it in the list. So backups and restores can be scheduled in the same way in batch mode. And the ACS also, to further simplify this task of setting up firmware upgrades, the ACS also has a very useful wizard that you can access. So not just for firmware upgrades, the wizards are also available for to quickly push configuration to multiple routers or remotely reboot or factory reset routers. So there's a lot of functionality that is easily available through the wizards. Now the ACS feature that we love the most is the drag and drop VPNs. So once your routers are registered to the ACS, they will show up in the VPN wizard. And drag and drop is all you need to set up IPsec LAN to LAN VPNs between two routers. How cool is that? Now the direction of the drag and drop will be important since it determines the VPN server and client. The wizard lets you customize all the IPsec parameters you need. For example, whether it's using ESP or AH, but it also has a default profile that will be used if you do not wish to customize it. And by default, it uses the aggressive mode, an ESP. You can modify this default profile. If you want to use main mode, you can set that up and then use drag and drop for all the profiles that you connect using this default profile. So this really simplifies the job of setting up and troubleshooting IPsec VPNs.
Mia, can I interrupt you?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a couple questions here. One is, so more than one is getting a lot interested in this. So the question is, how do they gain access to the system, to the hosted system that we have?
Send us an email. I think that would be the easiest.
What would be the best email to send that to?
You can send that to either support@abptech.com, or you can just send it to me, Mia, at abptech.com, MIA. Do bear with us though, because we are still we are seeing a lot of interest, and we are in the process of creating profiles. So send us an email. We will have you in our list, and then we will contact you with the account credentials.
All right, very good. Another question. What DrayTek supports TR069, which is a protocol that other devices support. So the question is, would DrayTek ACS work with other devices like voice over IP phones that support TR069?
Not at the moment, no. They will not. The ACS is only for remote monitoring and management of DrayTek devices. So DrayTek access points, firewalls, routers only. But we will talk about another software that we are currently working on later that will have, that will support some other vendors, some other products.
Okay, so last question so you can continue. The customer is asking if you are showing ACS version 1, when would version 2 be released, and if you're going to show a little bit of version 2 today?
We will be in the demo. We will be, based on how much time we have, we will definitely try to show you the version 2, and it's going to be available in March. We are still testing it. But if you want a demo account, let us know, so we can send you a demo account for the version 2.
Okay, so version 2 is available, and if you want your demo account on version 2, just mention that in the email. All right, thank you. You can continue.
Okay, so getting back to some of the features of the ACS, and just wanted to mention very quickly, the functionality will remain mostly the same. So the features supported by version 1 will also be supported in version 2, and some additional features. So all that we have been discussing so far is also applicable to version 2. So you can configure alarms in the ACS as well. You can set up alarms for WAN disconnection. So if you have load balancing or backup WANs configured on the routers, and if one disconnects and the other backup WAN takes over, you can set up notifications. So you will always be notified of that. Another advantage of this would be at the end of the month, you can generate very nice reports, and we'll talk about that later. So you can demonstrate to your customers that the DrayTek devices that you have deployed actually provided redundancy, network redundancy, in the event of their primary internet getting disconnected. So these alarms are very useful. You can proactively, once you get the alarm, you can proactively reach out to the customer, offer to reach out to their service provider to try and resolve whatever issue is causing their primary internet to be disconnected. Also, alarms for VPN disconnections can be set up. So for a multi-site VPN project, this is very useful. You will be notified if there is a disconnection, and disconnections can be caused by a variety of things. So if your primary internet disconnects, the VPN disconnects. However, if you have the alarm set up, you can be notified of that and proactively take steps to correct the problem. And these alarms are sent out through emails or SMS or even your favorite SNMP application. It totally depends on how you want to set it up. As I mentioned, a variety of reporting tools are also available within the ACS, and these can be generated in PDF, Word, or Excel formats. You can have reports on the WAN and LAN statistics for each customer equipment, customer network, LAN traffic graphs, WAN traffic graphs, an overview of all the IP addresses on all the routers. So it makes inventory tracking really simple. And these reports can be generated individually or on a group of routers that you select. So they are useful to, these reports are generated at the end of each month. They can be really useful to send to your customers as part of the value-added services that you are offering them. Okay. And last but not the least, just wanted to mention this again, that since ACS is a multi-tenant architecture, you can have multiple customer accounts on the same ACS server that are completely isolated from each other. So you can create different networks, users, group them, assign roles and privileges to the users. For example, if you're creating a network for your customer, you can make his chief engineer the group admin for that network. So he can add or delete any other users to that network. So he can set up users to have configuration privileges for network support, or he can set up only view-only operators who monitor the health parameters of all the customer routers without making changes. Okay, so we've touched upon this before, but so here's the introduction to the 2.0. DrayTek has been working on a better and more streamlined customer experience with their ACS over the last year. And they have built a very modern, intuitive GUI. They have, if you have been using the ACS one, you will notice that it's a lot cleaner. They have done away with a lot of unnecessary menus, so it's simpler to configure the ACS than before. And it's really a better interface. You can see all the important information that you need on the dashboard. It looks similar to the routers and the switches GUI if you have been using those. Now we are still testing this 2.0 platform in-house, but if you want, as I mentioned, we can offer you a demo account on the new platform, and it's going to be released sometime in March. Now I mentioned that ABP Tech is building a lightweight overlay that sits on top of the ACS for more real-time updates on critical device health parameters. This will be a multi-vendor platform. So in addition to DrayTek routers and access points, it's also going to have support for some other brands of PBXs, IP phones, and stuff. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is a DrayTek webinar, but if you want more information on our upcoming remote monitoring platform from ABP Technology, call us for more information, and we can set up a demo for you. All right, so before we move on to the ACS demo, I want to also discuss some other management features from DrayTek. A really cool feature is the inbuilt ability of the DrayTek routers to manage DrayTek Wi-Fi access points right from the router's GUI. So this makes it ideal for small offices, cafes, boutique hotels to deploy an all DrayTek solution. So while other popular solutions need a wireless controller to be purchased separately, the access point management is built in on the DrayTek routers. So the routers have an ability of managing anywhere from 20 to 30 access points, DrayTek access points, from their GUI for centralized management. Now, if you have a deployment that is larger than that, DrayTek also offers a software, access point management software, that you can install on a server and manage more access points. It's more scalable. And this functionality is also going to be added to the ACS. So if you have an ACS license, you will notice that some limited access point management features are already supported on it, the ability to provision access points centrally. So this makes access point deployment completely plug and play. Configurations can be pushed out to all the access points in batch mode, traffic usage for each access point can be monitored, and load balancing can be set up between access points based on signal strength or the traffic each one of them is handling. You can set up roaming based on the signal strength as well, and this was a new feature that got added to the access points. So all these features ensure that your access points are being used optimally without just overloading a few while the others are just not used at all. So if you're looking to upgrade your wireless networks, your customers for a more seamless wireless experience, or if you want to standardize on one solution for your customers, DrayTek would be the perfect solution for wireless. And another brand new management feature that has us really excited is central switch management. So this feature was added very recently to our popular SMB routers, and it lets you manage all your deployed DrayTek switches from the router's GUI itself. It's not yet available on the ACS, but DrayTek plans to add it in future. So customers don't have to log into their managed switches to configure the VLANs anymore. They just register the switches on the router, and the router pushes out the right settings to the switches. This makes VLAN configuration really simple. It saves you a lot of time while deploying VLANs on all your switches. Also, status of all the switch ports can be monitored from the router itself. So if there is any trouble with a connected phone or camera, the switch ports can be rebooted from the router or shut down based on schedules. To go along with the new central switch management feature, DrayTek has also introduced some new WebSmart switches, 24-port non-PoE switches, as well as some 8-port PoE switches. In addition to their fully managed switches that they've always had, the 24-port PoE and non-PoE switches. So take a look at the data book that I have uploaded. You'll find all the switch models listed there. All right, so that was my presentation. Henry, do you have any questions before I jump into the demo?
Yes, regarding the data book, is there an LTE router that can take SIM cards instead of USB dongle?
There is a model, although it's not available in the US yet. There is the LTE functionality will be available on the 2925 model this year, probably in the third quarter. And it will support AT&T and T-Mobile to begin with.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so without further delay, let's dive into the ACS interface here. So this is the hosted version that we have. ABP is hosting it for our customers, and this is the ACS version 1. I will show you the version 2, although that's still in the testing phase, so we don't have a lot of routers there. As you can see, we have a lot of customer networks here. And this is the map view. So you can see all the deployed DrayTek routers. You can see which ones are online, which ones have been disconnected. And if you click on them, you can see some information like the MAC address and the location of that device, the IP, the public IP, which can be quite useful. The ACS also shows you a quick summary of each network, shows you the total number of devices. So when a router first registers to the ACS, it will show up as an unknown device and it will have to be added to the right network. And I'll show you how to register a router to the ACS in just a minute. Also, as you can see, you have a window that displays alarms. So if there's a disconnection from the device, an alarm will show up here, as well as if you've set up email notifications or SMS notifications, you'll be notified of that. Here are different wizards that you can use to upgrade the firmware, take backups. So as you can see here, I can just choose the file here. I can either upload the file to the file repository or to browse to it from my computer, and I can choose to upgrade the firmware immediately or set up a time for all the batch mode firmware upgrades to take place. And I can choose which devices are upgraded, of course. I can also reboot or factory reset the routers. Let's look at the configuration very quickly. So as you can see, all the network information is available for every device that is registered to the ACS. All the settings that are available from the device's own GUI are also available in the ACS for configuration. And you have the VPN wizard, the drag and drop that I mentioned. So now here there are no current VPNs and this is a live network, so I don't want to make any changes here. But the only thing that you would need to do here is choose a router and drag another router here to this window and drag and drop to create a VPN tunnel. I believe I have some established VPNs in the ACS 2.0 that I can show you in a few minutes. So here's the alarm history for all the devices that have lost connection at some point. Also VPN disconnections show up here. This is where you would create all the ACS users, group all those users together so that you can assign various privileges. You can assign groups to different networks for your customers. So you have full control here whether you want to give access to the ACS to your to your customer's IT team or not, and how much access you want to give them. So right now we are logged into the root account, but if you log in with the customer network credential, you will only see the network for that customer. This is another very useful feature, the inventory monitor. This lets you see the model numbers of all your deployed equipment, so you can stay on top of firmware upgrades. You can make sure that all your hardware is upgraded if a model gets phased out, you know that you want to upgrade it to the latest. And of course, the reports. So I can choose how I want to generate the reports for each network or for each single particular device or just certain models. I can filter that too. So let's see if there was any traffic on this router. Now this doesn't seem to be connected. Okay, there's some traffic on this router. This is a production router, and as you can see, I have the option of exporting as a PDF, as an Excel document, and reports can be generated for LAN statistics, WAN statistics. So there's a lot of options available here. Now, the logs are very useful as well to see what actions have been taken for every device and which user has taken those actions. So if the password is changed or there has been a firmware upgrade or even if a firmware upgrade has failed, it would show up here. The time would show up here in detail. Okay. I think let's move to the configuration of the router so that I can show you how to get a router registered to the ACS. Okay, so this is a router I have in my lab. As you can see, it's a dual WAN router. It has two WAN ports, gigabit Ethernet WAN ports, and two USB ports for connecting LTE dongles. Now, if you want to set up the router to talk to the ACS, the settings can be found under System Maintenance, TR69. So the ACS server URL tells the router where to go to connect to the ACS. If you install your own ACS, you will, of course, have your own custom URL that the router can connect to. This is the URL for our hosted version, and the username password would be particular to the network that you want the router to connect to. So if we create an account for you on our hosted version, you will have your own username and password. So all your devices can register to your own network and they're isolated from all the other devices. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here is if your router is does not have a public IP, for example, my lab router does not have one, is being NATed behind our production router. So then I would need to enable the stun settings on the TR69. So the ACS has an inbuilt stun server, so you can use the same URL that you use for the ACS server in the stun settings as well. And this will tell your router what the real public IP that it is using is, so that it's able to successfully connect to the ACS.
So Mia, that was a question. There was a question about that. So can you control or reboot or get the status of a router that is not with the public or static IP? Based on your answer, your
Yes.
explanation now, it would be yes. Just enable stun.
Yes, and as I mentioned, we also have centralized access point management. This is in fact one of the router models that supports access point management for up to 20 access points. So let me just jump to that for a second. Oh, there is no access point connected to my lab router. Let me move to another router quickly. This is our production router that we use at our headquarters here. And we have a few access points that are connecting to this router that are around our locations here. So as you can see, the access point management on the router is a very simple way of keeping track. You can, these DrayTek's access points are standalone too. So if you want, you can absolutely configure them independently. You don't have to have a DrayTek router. But as you can see, a router, DrayTek router and access point combined solution makes it really simple to deploy these access points. We have some ceiling mounted ones here, the round ones that you're seeing. We have some desk mounted ones here. And they are all 802.11 AC access points. So they support gigabit speeds. So this feature shows you the number of stations that are connecting to the various access points. As well as the traffic that is being handled by each access point. And if you notice that certain access points are being overutilized while others are not really being used at all, the central access point management feature lets you set up load balance. We don't have that here at the moment, but you can set up load balance by station number. So you can set up a threshold. And then you can decide, for example, if you set up a station number threshold of 20, you can decide what happens after that is exceeded on a particular access point. You can either set up an access point to stop accepting any new connections or disassociate the existing ones if they are idle or if they have moved away and their signal strength has gone below a certain threshold. So this way, the router tries to regulate the traffic that is being handled by all the access points. If a certain access point is being overwhelmed, then the new clients that are trying to connect can be pushed to other access points, or the existing clients can be disassociated and new ones can be handled. You can see some very useful traffic graphs for all the access points here. You can choose to see weekly traffic graphs as well. You can upload maps of your location. So once you upload a map here, you can actually see visual access points, and you can easily design your network layout better. So you can make sure that there is adequate coverage, wireless coverage, by placing virtual access points across the map. So as I mentioned, this access point management feature is available in our multi-WAN DrayTek routers. This model supports up to 20. There are some models, newer models that support up to 30 access points. And beyond that, you can always install our access point management software on a server so that it can scale to more than to be able to manage more access points. Now this functionality is also going to be added to the ACS. It already has a few features that you can control through the ACS. So that's the plan. DrayTek is working towards that. Let's jump back to the ACS settings here, the TR69 settings. So as you can see, the router can register to the ACS, but also decide whether or not you want to manage the access points in the LAN of that router through the ACS. So if you set up the apply settings to APs section here, then you can have all the access points in your network show up in the ACS. And since they are NATed, you will need to apply stun again. You can choose to use either your router stun or apply specific stun settings only for the APs. And before I move on to the ACS 2.0, let me just show you switch management here very quickly. I don't have a connected switch at the moment. Now, switch management lets you manage VLANs. So if you have a lot of switches in your network and you upgrade to the latest firmware, you can have them all managed through the router itself. You don't have to log into each individual switch. Yeah. You can also create groups of switches and apply certain settings to the group. So you can have a default profile setup for the VLAN settings or schedules. If you want to reboot certain ports on the switch, you can set that up. Create groups of switches that have similar settings, and you can take configuration backups. You can remote reboot the switches if there's a problem in your network. So it makes it really simple. Similar to the access points, the switches themselves are also standalone. You can still manage them individually. But this is a great feature that is inbuilt into the DrayTek routers and completely free of cost. And the ACS will also have switch management in future. Although it's not available yet, that's something that is being planned. Now this is the ACS 2.0 version. This is still beta. It has not been released yet, but we can create demo accounts for you. At the moment, we only have our own devices on this version right now. You might notice the difference. It's a much better interface than the ACS 1.0. There's a huge improvement. In fact, it looks quite similar to how the router's own GUI looks if you're used to using the DrayTek routers. We just have our own few devices here on the ACS at present. The functionality is similar. If you click on a certain device, you will see the IP address, the MAC address, the location. And when a device registers to this ACS for the first time, it will show up as a unknown device. You can add it. It's just a security measure, so you can add it to a known network. And as you can see, you can monitor the traffic, the clients on each device. I also have some access points here that are showing up from a production network. The functionality will be quite similar to the ACS 1.0, just a very user-friendly interface. drag and drop VPNs again. And if you choose a particular router, a particular device, you can configure all its settings through the ACS. Now here's the VPN that is online. Do notice the arrow, the direction of the arrow, that shows you the server. So this is a IPsec LAN to LAN VPN that is coming in on our production router. I can create copy parameters, profiles for copying parameters that I mentioned before. I can have IP MAC to bind lists or port forwards that I can copy between the same series of routers. Pretty much the same stuff that we saw on the ACS 1.0. Now one new feature that got added was, and we are running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly show it to you.
Yeah, we have a couple pending questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, one question is regarding Wi-Fi. Do you have the ability to create a Wi-Fi web page for voucher type access in the case of hospitality or a captive portal kind of?
Yes, it was just released. This feature was just released. You'll need the latest firmware for that. In fact, I think we have a very good application note, but you can set up a hotspot on the DrayTek router that lets your wireless users authenticate using Google or Facebook, like social media logins. Is that what you were asking, Henry?
Yes, for hospitality, the router will intercept connections and present the authentication screen that can be customized, and once they authenticate, then you can define the landing page, where it goes, or how long can they be connected. So there's a hotspot feature. That's how DrayTek calls it.
And in our some of our models, the larger models, 2960, 3900, it actually lets you generate. There's a mass generator of user profiles. So if you're a hotel and you want to generate 100 user profiles at once, automatically generate passwords for them, you can do that with some of our models too.
Now, the DrayTek, this is a very good solution. There is no, let's say, there's some solutions where you can print the password of the system, things like that, or give a voucher. On DrayTek, you can generate users, and you can define the expiration date, and then that can be published, or that information can be provided to the guests.
Yeah, as you can see on the screen here, you have a few different ways of handling that. You can log in with Facebook or Google, like I mentioned, or your guests you can give a PIN code to your guests, even with SMS. So that PIN can be sent through SMS to your guests so that they can log in. And you get to control how much traffic, how much data they can use, or how long their profile will be valid with schedules. Now, the new feature that was released recently is how much customization you can have for this web portal. So you can change the skin, the color, the logo. You can add your own logos. So basically, you can customize the web portal completely.
All right, so let's move on. We're about to run out of time. Another question, do you have I can answer this one, Mia. Does the router have the capability to show usage by MAC or IP and the type of data they are accessing? Is there a device that is misbehaving? Can we shut the rogue device? You can see sessions and bandwidth usage per IP. So you can look at the DrayTek GUI router GUI and find who is overusing or who is using all the bandwidth or have 1,000 sessions at any given time, and then you can disconnect that client. There's just a button right there, you click, the client will be disconnected. If you want to see more layer 7 kind of traffic or behavior, like who is going to Yahoo, who's going, or who is the top user of YouTube, things like that, you need to install an application that is free, but it's an external, runs on an external server because of memory and data storage requirements. Has to be an external server in the same LAN. It's called, how is it called, Mia? Smart Monitor. Smart Monitor, yeah. So you have the ability that is free. The last question is, if somebody will have AC version 1, can you give a version 2 access as well? And
yes, we can.
I would say yes. So just send an email and we'll just request access to version 2. And we'll give you the credentials so you can start using and testing. Okay.
Just bear in mind that it's a new beta version. So if you notice any trouble with it, if anything at all, just keep us in the loop and send us feedback.
Is there a VPN client for DrayTek?
Yes, there's a free smart VPN client for Windows, Mac, Android, iPhones that you can download on the DrayTek website here. If you go to draytek.com and you click on download and utility, you will see the smart VPN client. And you can set up SSL or PPTP, L2TP, that kind of, all different protocols for your remote dialing clients.
All right, Mia, last thoughts. We have about 3 minutes so we can finish.
All right, so I don't want to keep you all too long. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to call us or email us. You can reach me at mia, M-I-A, at abptech.com. So a recording of this webinar will also be emailed to you next week, so please share with your colleagues and customers. And there will be a short survey displayed at the end of the webinar. I hope you can complete it so we can improve based on your feedback. And once again, thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Mia.